Welcome back to Tend the Flame. I have such a great story for you. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching, if you're a subscriber on Substack, you'll see that I clicked the video. It's been a minute since we've done a video episode, but since this episode is going to be about some of the beautiful things about being human, I wanted to be able to use the technology to connect with you. So, a few weeks ago, I went to this for you. This episode for you is if you feel that everyone is moving very quickly and telling you that there is only one way things are going to work out. That's not true. If you feel like you are skidding your heels into the holiday season and looking for meaning and warmth and remembering moments from your childhood and that you want to bring those into the holiday season, you've hit the right spot. Now, it's not that we're going to talk particularly about the holiday, but the end of year or the heading into the winter season for the human spirit is one of reflection and in cultivation of inner light. And so when we turn that flicker on inside, because we don't have in the northern hemisphere the sun is quite as bright warming us from the outside, we pull forth inside. Right? We in the summer we are compulsed to go outside. Normally, if we're joyful about it, no matter what the weather is, we are scampering. And just like the squirrels in the winter, we are huddling in underneath our blankets and our bone broth and the warmth of friends and holiday. And a lot of people turn towards the contemplative season. And that's kind of been up for me and a lot of people in my circle. How about you? And the interesting thing about the beginning of the year when everyone's like, it's the year of the snake and I'm going to transform. And then we're remembering what transformation actually looks like in the natural world, which means there's effort, release, let go. There is grief and there is confusion and there's a bursting forth of life. So this year I got a little quiet on the podcast and I drew back because if you're shedding and you're going to expose a vulnerability in the natural world, you're going to retreat, right? You're not going to run out to where a predator can see you. You're going to retreat and get still to allow the molting process to happen. And I think a lot of us are feeling that right now. And my nature sometimes is to declare and show, right? But one of the beautiful things that these past couple of weeks of slowing down and surrendering in amidst tremendous confusion is being shown that there truly is an unpredictable, benevolent force that animates this life should you choose to make yourself available to it. So this will be a couple parts and I hope you enjoy. So in this contemplation, I met up with an old colleague who's in education and we were bandying about ideas and each of us were looking at what the other had accomplished in midlife and kind of code switching into how did you do this and how did you do that? And it was a really fabulous, unexpected connection. And as we continued chatting, I said something to her about wanting to fill the cup of caregivers, educators, practitioners. And she said, you know what, Kate, I hear you. It's like we're the quilters. You know, like in a previous time, we were the quilters. We understood the power of coming together in community and building something that was worth building. And I thought, that's exactly it. We're the quilters. And I didn't run to go learn how to quilt, but I sat with the first step was while there is a shiny invitation to ease. And let me tell you, I love ease. I am definitely settling into the easier the better when it's nourishing. You know, like fast food is easy, but it makes me sick. So the payoff really isn't easy. I just don't partake. And I think, and that's fine if you do, but I know my own system. And so someone could tell me that there's going to be McDonald's everywhere and Taco Bell everywhere and Burger King everywhere, but it doesn't actually affect me because I don't partake in it. And this power of choice is this amazing, underappreciated skill and gift that we have as humans. You can choose. So, in that idea of choice, there's a phrase I've been contemplating for the past several years, and it's the right use of will and the cultivation of will. And to be able to choose, you have to have a strong enough relationship with your internal world to make a choice. Because plenty of us, and I'll just use myself, we can think that we're operating on our own choice, and then you do something that's totally out of character for you. And you're like, why did I just lose it? Or why did I say that? And you're kind of surprised. Well, you're out of choice. Your will did not hold in the present moment, and some default or aberrant thoughts, which is something floating by, was stronger than you. So there's so much information right now. Lovely. I have thought about and have talked to other people who are returning to reading more books because the constant short form flickering screen at night is really fun, except when you need to put it down, right? So if we have a strong use of will and we understand discipline, boundaries for what is good for our system, then the social media really isn't that big of a deal. You just put it down, right? It's like McDonald's. If you understand, say you enjoy it, if you understand it's a good treat once in a while, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, I could go on about why I think it's a huge deal, but it's not that big of a deal if you have a strong use of will. You eat it a couple times a year and you put it down. It's when you don't have a perception of self and a strong enough will to do right by yourself, to be in alignment with your values, that all of this onslaught of information and choice becomes difficult. And I thought I needed to teach everyone about that, which was very pompous of me. But what I realize now is I don't have to teach everyone about that. I can just create a small island of sanity in a very quickly evolving world. And part of my small island of sanity would be to beckon you to come over and remember that, oh yeah, you're not off for feeling rushed. And you aren't wrong that something feels like it needs more. And the great thing is more is there. So one of the benevolent ways I have, one of the teachers I have in my life is mothering an 8-year-old boy who has a strong sense of will and does need to have it be educated, right? We all come in divinely perfect, but we're here to learn and grow and cultivate, and that comes through education. And the most effective form of education for children are play, and the most effective times of play is hands-on, not on a screen, but hands-on. So I recently went to a living farm, a historical living farm about 25 minutes away from where I live up in Bucks County. And we pulled in and it was beautiful. And we went because it was Hopewell Living Farm. We went because it was logging day and I heard that you could cut wood. And so on the idea of right use of will, cultivating or dispersing energy, giving in a healthy boy the ability to cut down trees sounded like a great idea. And when we went, it was literally beautiful. The land there is gorgeous. And when we came around the corner, there was a small calf, 2-week-old calf, and there were some animals. But it wasn't for show because it was a living historical farm. So there were a few animals, there were old barns, and there was horses with farming gear from the late 1800s pulling the logs. And there was a double-handed saw and a fire and a station. When I say a station, I just mean some logs where you could hit with the time period hammer and the spike, so to speak, to split the logs. And in the first couple of minutes, meaning the first walk around, right? So we were probably there for about 20 or 30 minutes. It was really interesting. We stopped by the pigs and we did this and we did that and we walked around. And then my son said, it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of boring. And I said, well, let's try, do you want to try cutting the wood? He's like, okay. Because when we're moving at a fast pace and we're used to a fast pace, we have to give our body and our awareness a moment to slow down and drop in. So we aren't I'm not, this is just to give you contextual clues. We're not a big screen family. So it wasn't even that he was on a screen and couldn't regulate. It was just the pace was so markedly so much slower. So we sawed and we cut the piece, and that was really empowering and difficult work. And side note, I didn't know how difficult it was until 48 hours later when my shoulders, I got a nice little tutorial on all the muscles that I had used. And the man was saying, it was a full body workout. And I did it, my son did it, and then I watched a few other adults not be able to complete it, that they needed assistance from the volunteers to be able to complete it. So he sawed. And then he split the wood. So he saw the wood be logged, and he saw the wood be logged. He sawed it in half. Then he split it, and then there were wooden pegs that you could use a traditional sawhorse for to sit and do a two-handed sanding sort of whittling. And he really dropped in there, and a few other boys did as well. And what was boring at 25 minutes proceeded to expand to 3 hours plus. It was very cold, not too cold, but it wasn't easy weather. And he and other boys took turns between the splitting and the sawhorsing for over 3 hours. And I watched mostly my son, right? Because you're more intrigued by those that get progressively better at the hand tool and the moving of it. And I watched the boys take turns, and I started talking to the director of the facility, and we both had a conversation about letting children use implements and letting them understand history by doing. And we had a conversation about how being out in nature and what we talked about was physical exercise or hands-on, but that's will. That's a cultivation of will to complete a task that requires presence of focus and adaptation of body for a skill set. And how she saw over the years so many children just enjoy themselves of all ages and really drop in. And when we left, my son wanted a sawhorse for Christmas, and now he's whittling, which is beautiful because woodworking is a gorgeous hobby should he choose to continue it. It's something that can create a true island of sanity in a world, because you can feel like your life is out of control, but you can take a piece of wood and you can shape it into something, and you can give it to others. And I know I'm stating something that you're like, oh yeah, I know that. But the children won't know that if we don't keep giving them that experience. And I believe that is where this podcast is heading. Tending the flames of communities, leaders, and people like yourselves that understand that really small acts of creativity and kindness is what kindles the human spirit. And that kindling the human spirit is a feel good moment, and that is worthwhile in and of itself. But that warmth creates solutions and community, and it creates the actual experience of a life well lived. So while some of us might be on big stages and some of us might be publishing really big books, some of us might be holding small groups in forest schools, some of us might return to the art of book clubs, which I'm really drawn to, quite honestly, or a more informal writing club. We have seen the side of eradicating participation, and many of us are saying no thank you. And that makes me so hopeful, because we can remember that no matter what is created and that is not of us is mimicry. And what is created in relationship to nature and reciprocity and the human spirit has a dynamic aptitude to it that can create something unexpected. And it's not always unexpectedly good. I'm not going to say that. But living in a programmable, data driven assumption is not statistically looking like it's going to be super fun either. So, coming into creativity, and this podcast is called Quilters and Quills, I thought already the internet is apparently 80% AI created, which means it's a content spewing machine, right? If we're using um, um, a data scraper to give us information, it's just scraping itself, right? It's just like it's. I just boiled down candles, right? So I had a candle. It went down so far as a beeswax candle. I got cotton wick. I melted it down. I put it into different containers. I had a great time doing it. It's not a new candle, it's a repurposing. Now, for me, it felt really great because I'm getting the most out of it. So I guess that's not the best metaphor, and I should delete that. But we're going to keep going. What I'm saying is that if we're just drawing on the same information, we're going to be in a little bit of a cycle, actually. If we're generating ideas through data dumping as opposed to using technology to support human creation. So there is a woman, Shay, who's Harvard doing her thesis. I've been talking a lot about her. She is on Substack. Analog Social is what it's called, and I'm so glad I found her because she's much more educated than I am, and articulating a hopeful feeling that I had that the return of human created content will be the swing. Not for everyone, but for us. And I thought about writing. Short form content is becoming like the sugar candy of the human brain, and there's studies out now already about how it's creating anxiety and depression and lack of focus, and you can't sustain a thought, and that how good literature, true literature, which I don't think is one genre, so I'm not saying that, but something that's a little heftier, utilizes the brain in such a way that you have to build the world that you're reading. And so it employs tactics of empathy and visualization, and that your brain does not know the difference because it's fully submerged in the world. And so for children, longer form, now of course, children's longer forms are not going to be quite as long, but for children, this is a fabulous way for them to practice cultivation of will, situations, experiences, human empathy, understanding characters, story, putting themselves in situations that they don't have to live, but they will not have the negative benefit of, but their body can start to have the neural mapping, the networking in their brain of understanding new experiences. Whereas if you're just consuming on short form content, it doesn't penetrate. It doesn't penetrate because there's nothing to rebuild or digest. It's just consumption. And I thought, oh, this is fantastic. So just the way that we swung out, we're swinging back. And just the way I've seen so many promotions that are already starting to dwindle about AI writing a book. The alchemy of words creates the world a reader can step into. The effort of the writer having a relationship with inspiration and bringing it to form is a felt experience that changes the writer And that transformation is imbued in the words on the page that get passed to the reader. And technology will advance, so I don't need to participate in the conversation of relative adaptations. I would encourage you to look at some of the more sustained beauty and depth of creation when technology was less about speed and more about man and a tool. I think the element of speed is so helpful, and I'm enjoying my podcast with you right now. However, it does alter what is created, because by the process moving so quickly, there isn't the depth. 3D printing is not the same as stonemasonry. Paintings are not the same as AI generated memes. They won't impress upon us the depth that we can access, excuse me, when we pause to participate. So in this month of Tend the Flame, we will look to the efforts and where to place them. So we see, even in my own throat, what comes called forth when we go a little deeper into what we're called to offer. And deeper, perhaps, isn't even the right word anymore. It's maybe taking up more space in what you believe you deserve and the choices that you want to have for the life that you are stewarding, and perhaps for the children that you might be connected with, whether they are your own or a teacher or just someone in your life that you wish for them that they have the joy that you had the privilege of experiencing. And I believe, like anything else in life, when we include the element of other and service, the benefits and the joy magnetize and overflow. So when I think about quilters and quills, I'm not pretending I want to go backwards. I do want to pull from the past what is precious and honoring about being these wonderfully creative beings. And instead of feeling like the outside world is telling us to fit in, we settle into the internal light, lend an ear there, and begin to remember that an internal landscape, the inscape that Gerard Manley Hopkins talked about, is reflective externally. So let us not chase after something that cannot exist without us, but let us tend that internal flame and be delighted at what can come from true creativity. Instead of the forward movement leaving us behind, which I don't think is necessary. I think we're being told that. I don't think it's true. And as soon as there are more and more of us, just this little minority, this creative minority, I'm borrowing a language from Jamie Winship. But then the further I look, this phrasing of creative minority in times of chaos is part of our human history. So look at your little circle. Tend to your inner flame and think about that story that you wanted to write or the book that you wanted to read, and perhaps come away from a moment or two of that which moves faster than your joy, and sit with a craft of your cooking, of your conversation, of your presence, of your respect for the need of silence, so you can integrate what has transpired of your day, and place your hope inside of yourself and see what comes back from there. Thank you so much for being here on Tend the Flame. If you're looking for things to write, there's a Write the Year. If you're a subscriber, you can go. It starts in September, but for every month there's a prompt to write the year with contemplations and inspirations. And they're connected to Steiner's calendar of the soul, because returning and rhythmically investigating one's life illuminates patterns, creates a sense of safety in the fact that, oh, these are things I wonder at this time of year, and oh, these are problems that I have solved, and oh, look, this is not new. I've been trying to figure this out for years. And you realize that the reason these contemplative verses can be written is because that is part of the human spirit, is to go through and grow with each year and learn and undo and have some years slip by and have confusion and then have unexpected growth. So next week we'll talk more about that idea of growth, where it comes from when it starts internally, as opposed to racing after that which you didn't sign on for and is trying to convince you that you did. Thank you so much for taking your time to tune in to Tend the Flame and navigating that very interestingly placed time of my throat constricting, and see through your week where your voice expands and where it wants to hold back, and how you step through those moments and to share what you're here to create. See you back here soon on Tend the Flame.